tribulations, my heart, my balls, my somebody stop me, somebody come and get me. Little did I know that the Lord was riding with me. The dark, the light, my heart, the fight, the wrong, the right is gone.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another JVS movie review. As today we are bringing you the latest from the premier horror movie production company Blumhouse, and this one streaming on Peacock is called They/Them. Now here's a quick synopsis. A group of teenagers at an LGBTQ plus conversion camp endures unsettling psychological techniques while being stalked by a mysterious mass killer. Yes, this as crazy as that sounds. Wow. Directed by Logan, and stars Theo Germaine as Jordan, Anna Chlumsky, I hope I'm saying your name right, as Molly, Austin Cute as Toby, and Kevin Bacon as Owen. Now, first thoughts about this movie. The premise of it sounds amazing. The point that you have a film set in a horror universe, and what I mean by universe is the setting of the film, that is at an LGBTQ plus conversion camp. It automatically just screams, we want to try something different. We want to give you a different type of take on a horror movie. So the premise is amazing. The premise is set up to be this amazing type of film. When we're introduced to the kids, and that's the best way I'm going to start it, is when we got introduced to the kids. We see all the personalities of the different kids and how they stick out and how they just enjoy being themselves. And then we're introduced to Owen, played by Kevin Bacon, and it is one of the most disturbing speeches you can possibly get, of him basically telling them, like, you're here because your parents don't want you to be gay. And it is hard to hear him give his speech, and yet at the same time it leaves you intrigued on what's going to happen next. This film's first 10 minutes is so strong on the introduction of the characters, the introduction of what we perceive to be the villain of this film. Everything is so great in its first 10 minutes. And then we spend the remainder of the film wondering why the envelope wasn't pushed as far as it should have been. And that's the biggest problem with this film. So, again, we're introduced to these characters. The lead of the characters, from the beginning, you kind of know it's going to be Jordan, played by, I want to say his name right again. I think it's, Theo Germaine. He plays Jordan, and he is clearly, from the moment we see him on screen, he is the lead of this film, and you understand why. The charisma is through the roof with this character. You are intrigued the moment he steps on film. It's you can tell someone who just takes control and command of the film. And when the moment you see him, you understand that's exactly what we're going to get here. And we get to see him and Kevin Bacon play off of each other at multiple times in this film. And every time they do it, it's great. But every time they do it, it's a deeper conversation that should have been had with the script that didn't happen. And instead, it morphs into this trope of what you want to perceive to be a slasher film. At no time does this feel like a slasher film. It barely feels like a horror film, but it definitely doesn't feel like a slasher film. Even with the killings that happen in the movie, it doesn't feel like a slasher film. And I think it's because it almost feels like it was a confusion of what type of movie to be made. Do we make an amazing movie about kids at a conversion camp and how psychologically that can really be traumatizing? Because at first I thought that could have been an amazing angle to go off of, to take it more of the psychological horror route and possibly mix in a little bit of a slasher in it and get you intrigued. Or maybe just go straight slasher and say, hey, we understand this amazing backstory that we're giving these characters. We understand that we are giving you a different type of characters in this film, but we're still going to give you a all-out traditional slasher film. But none of it happens here. So instead, you're stuck with a film that wants to say a lot, and I think has a lot of good points that falls into, and I know for some people it's going to be odd to say it this way, but it falls into after school special Disney type of trope of what a horror movie could be and what it means to be in this community of these amazing kids and all of this other. But it feels so watered down at times. It makes you question why was this made that way? Because clearly we can see that the idea is there, and we understand with the idea being there. All it is at that point is about execution. But at no point in time did I feel the plot or the story executed anything remotely close to the first 10 minutes of this film, which was great, and for the premise of this film, which sounds amazing. So instead, the biggest thing to tune in for here is Kevin Bacon gives a creepy performance that is really, really good. Theo, Germaine gives an amazing performance. Austin gives an amazing performance, and a really good performance. Like, it's some really good performances in this film. The cast is so big. You're left with certain characters that just feel like they're completely throwaways. I would have loved if this would have just focused on a smaller group of kids at this camp, and maybe a little bit more backstory on this camp, because that's what you kind of want. And they try to hint towards it, like heading past the second act in it. They try to give you a little bit of backstory, but it's not enough at all to make you overly care about this camp and overly care about the direction that eventually you see the film is going in. And I think without that background of that camp, it is hard to make you, the audience, or anyone care about that. So instead, you're tuning in for a really good performance. Really, really good performances. That's what you're tuning in for this film for, and a promise of what could have been. And I'm not saying even that John Logan didn't direct this film well. It's a well-directed film. It's just not well written. And it leaves so many holes that you're kind of wondering, like, again, if the premise wasn't so interesting, would I had at all tuned into this film? Or would I had made it through the film? It felt like, for an old 80s reference, like one of the old Sleepaway Camp sequels that just felt like they were just being thrown out there. This one is like that, just with a much more interesting premise and 3 to 4 good performances in it, but not enough to overcome the point that your story makes no sense. And that we don't care about the history of the camp, and that's what you actually need to care about the most in this film to be intrigued by it. But again, if you're looking for something different, or an attempt to do something different, maybe this is a type of film for you. But again, if you're a lover of horror, I don't think you're gonna like this at all. It scratches the surface of being a horror movie, but never enough to make me even really want to call this a horror movie. It's closer to a drama than it is a horror movie. Like, the slasher elements, I think, are so poorly done in this film that it throws you off. But again, if you're here for some really good performances by some up-and-coming actors, this could be the film for you. If you are here to see a creeper performance from Kevin Bacon, I think you'll love it. As long as you don't pay attention to any parts of the story or the plot or anything else of that nature. So, them currently streaming on Peacock. Out of a possible 10, I'm going to give them 3 out of 10. And that's almost a star for every actor that I thought was really, really good in this film. That's the best way to put it. I give them that because they're really good. Austin and Theo especially. I would love to see a different type of horror film with them two in it. I think they can really perfect it well. Here is just a lot of thrown ideas out there that's just not executed well enough for you to care about anything in this film. And again, it's a wasted opportunity. The premise was enough to get you hooked in, and the execution is enough to make you not want to see this movie ever again. But Again, check it out on Peacock. Let us know what you think. This has been another JVS movie review. Peace, people.